Okay, Cheryl, if you would like to take it away.
Okay, well, you just want me to introduce myself?
Yeah, just start off by introducing
Okay.
yourself.
Okay, Dakiapi, Machiapi, Machiapi, Lena, Shichangu, Lakota, Imataha, Chante Washde Nape Chayuzapi. My Lakota name, Machiapi, means they depend on her. My grandma gave me that name when I was still in high school. So I've carried that name with both a lot of pride, but also it's a name that I have to live up to be, and it has really informed me in that way. I'm Shichanga Lakota. I grew up and lived on the Rosebud Reservation until 2002 when I left there and went and lived up near the Lummi Reservation in Washington for 10 years and then came to the College Fund in 2012. When I lived in Rosebud, I lived in St. Francis and Rosebud. I raised my children in Rosebud, and it wasn't until they were grown that I left to pursue other career options. I worked at St. Augustine University for after I got out of college. I had gone, I always tell students, I'm you. I grew up on the res. I went to three different colleges before I finally finished. And in between kind of going to those colleges, I worked for my tribe and for the Rosebud Sioux tribe. Really got great experience there with business and economic development issues. And then I worked at Sente after I graduated from college as in a number of positions, starting out as a faculty member. So I was a faculty member there for many years. I had a consulting business, and I also was they didn't call, I don't have a superintendent certificate, so they didn't call it a superintendent. I was the chief educational officer at St. Francis Indian School for 4 years. Um, so that was a really great experience there. And then I was the president at Northwest Indian College for 10 years. So, and now I'm here.
Wow, that's crazy. It's quite the name
Yeah.
you live up to.
Yeah.
So going back with your education, did you like school when you were growing up or as you were getting into higher education?
Cool. I think I like reading. And
Mhm.
I back when I went to school, I went to public school on my reservation, Todd County, and I went to elementary and high school. They didn't really like have middle school like you have today. You went to the elementary school until sixth grade, kind of the outlying elementary schools, and then you went to this centralized location. It was St. Francis and Todd County were kind of the two choices. Um, so I liked school okay. I tried to get good grades and still have a good time. and and so that was real important. And I think for college, I knew I wanted to go to college. I think it was expected that I would go to college. But I probably wasn't mature enough. My parents had been really like protective of their I have five siblings that at that time, and um my younger brother and I, there's several years between us and the the older kids, and so my parents were pretty protective of me, and when I went to college I didn't really know how to navigate that. And even though I did fine academically, socially it was a little bit more challenging, and so I felt like I needed to kind of mature as a person and before I was able to finish. And then I had um, my kids, when I was in college and actually finished, and they can be a great incentive.
Yeah. That's what my mom did. She went back to college a little bit later. So when I was finishing high school, she was getting her bachelor's. When I was getting my bachelor's, she was getting her master's. So
Good for her, that's
yeah.
great.
Um, so when you were in college, what did you study exactly?
So I started out, so the first college I went to was Dartmouth.
Mm.
And back in the, so this was the 70s, and in the 70s there was a program that there was a lot of recruiting of Native students to go to some of the Ivy Leagues. There were programs that really helped facilitate that. That was my realization that I wasn't really ready for, you know, again, not academically. Academically, I was fine, but socially, I wasn't really ready for that environment. And then political science was my interest. I came back, and my dad worked for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and my parents wanted me to go to what was at the time Northern State College in Aberdeen, where the Aberdeen area office for the Great Plains is there, and that way my dad could um, check on me. I think,
Yeah.
and my younger brother came there for a while, and so I went to Northern and I was a political science major, and then I stopped up for a while, worked at the tribe, worked for the tribal business manager, and then I went back to college with then with my first husband. He was returning to college for his graduate work, and I shifted to a business major. So I graduated from the University of South Dakota with a degree in business management.
Mm.
And that after, and then I did some work, graduate work in public administration. Then I moved back to Rosebud, and that's when I started working at Sente. And later on, I went, there was a program that South Dakota State University, Ogallala Lakota College, and Sente Gleska did jointly. There were, I think, 21 Native educators who went through that program and got our master's degrees. And some
Wow.
went on to get doctorates, but many of us stayed, with that graduate, the master's degree, and that was really nice. That made it possible to go to get our graduate degree, have our tuition and fees supported, have our travel supported, and um, not have to leave home.
Yeah.
So that was really good. And that was in the 90s. So that's a long
Okay.
time ago. and and that was really I was still at Sente, just leaving Sente at that time and going to work at
Mhm.
St. Francis. So but I always so that was my main thing, was business management, which has been really helpful to me as an
Mm.
educator, or as running a college, or running a school, or running the college fund. Having a business degree is a really helpful degree in those areas.
That's really cool. So, when you were going into this master's program or just anything that you were doing previous, did you always have the ambition to like reach these high level positions in your jobs, or was that just something that happened because you were qualified for it?
I have shared in recent years that I aspired to run a tribal college. So
Mm.
at Sinte Gleska University, my late mentor and relative Lionel Bordeaux was the president there for, I think, over 45 years before he passed away a couple of years ago. And
Mhm.
it was clear that I wasn't going to get that job, because he was a good president and was devoted to that work. And so I sometimes share that with especially young women, that it's okay to tell yourself that you'd like to be in a leadership role, and then to do the work that you need to do to get to that. So for me, I really thank him because he gave me the opportunity to be in different roles at Sente. And then I really thank my community, the school board at St. Francis, for hiring me to be uh, the chief educational officer there, um, because those experiences really, gave me that opportunity to develop my own leadership. So I know it's really awkward, because we often think especially as women and as Native women, that we should just let opportunity fall in our lap. But I don't think it really does. I think you have to prepare yourself for it and then be open to it. And so, as part of my journey as a Native woman, I've, come to be more comfortable sharing that.
That's really nice. Um,
You could be the CEO of the college fund. You just have to get
hey.
yourself ready for it.
I don't know, it's a lot of responsibility.
It is, but I was older, so
Yeah.
more experienced.
Um, would you change anything about your educational journey?
I don't think I would change my educational journey because I, I went to college at a time, which is also, I think, really important. I went to college at a time when the Native Renaissance was in full bloom. The American Indian movement had really caused a lot of attention to be paid to Native people. The tribal colleges, and other community nonprofits, the Native women, and their activism really emerged during that time. And one of the things that I've shared in the past is that, a couple things besides the Native activism that occurs on college campuses in those days, that was really powerful to be able to experience that. It was also a time when there was a, there was a rise in women's consciousness. So I had the opportunity to like take classes on feminist politics and feminist studies that um, they were like really emerging and taking hold at that time. I mean, one of the most influential classes that I ever took was a class on food politics. Because, even though I grew up on the reservation, went to a public school, we didn't get a lot of education about our
Mhm.
our people. We got it from our family, depending on how active your family was, or different things like that. And I didn't really, I knew the United States government had, really harmed us. I mean, I lived with that kind of thing, but I learned that the United States policies really impacted and harmed other communities. And that class in food politics really looked at the development of cash farming. And it just
Mhm.
really taught me a lot about the system and kind of what we're kind of having to navigate. I won't say up against, because I think we have to navigate it, try to change it. At that time, examples of that were like Philip the Philippines, just like Native people, in the Philippines, people were subsistence living, and the United States influenced the development, and, and capitalism influenced the development and the shift in the Philippines from subsistence living to rice production.
Mhm.
And when they did that, then that changed the whole economic and social system. So that being able to take that class way back in the 70s
Mhm.
really, even today, helps me think about, how we navigate the policies and the practices of the government and of capitalism.
Well, that's really cool. So that goes to show you education stays with you.
It
Can never lose it.
does. It does. That it does. And I think it also gives you it can be like real solid in your lifelong learning. It helps
Mhm.
you see, and I think it did introduce me to my current learning practice, which is often topical. Like I want to
Mm.
learn about something. Um, and so I'll take the time to study that.
Yeah. Um, You kind of given some advice already to our scholars, but is there any other advice that you would give to our current scholars or future scholars about, education or furthering their education, or if, they're unsure, or if they're, would you just have any other extra advice on that?
I think my I do have advice. So I think several pieces. One is that I think that we have a lot of tools as Native people and the values and the um, practices of our people. So I think that persevering so that I tell people you might stop out, try to stop out at a good time, like at the end of the quarter or the end of the semester, persevere or don't stop out and persevere through to the attainment of your goals. I think that that is, a good tool. I think that I still to this day try to persevere, and I also am an industrious person. So it
Mhm.
takes work to get an education. You can't when especially after you leave, if you leave high school, or maybe you got your high school equivalency, like your GED or something, then you have to go back to um kind of like uh you go to college, and college takes work. It takes discipline. And I think we as Native people, certainly the Native people that I have had the opportunity to be in community with, they recognize that it takes work to get things done. It takes work to uh, do your cultural responsibilities. So if you're going to have an honoring, you have to plan for it. You have to get ready for it. At work, going to college is no different than that. You have to work for it. You have to plan for it. You have to be disciplined. I do, and so that's always something I think of. I think you do get homesick. You do get lonely, and so it's good if you can find, at least one good friend, hopefully a community, but that might require you to open yourself up because there might not be somebody from your community, I'm going to say in quotes, at that institution. So find someone that you can be in relationship with so that you have someone to help you kind of with that. I also think that you have to, which is really hard, but you have to learn to navigate your cultural and home responsibilities while sticking to your education. Okay, your education is going to, I think, as Native people, education gives us a different kind of mobility than in the rest of society. And a lot of, not everyone, but a lot of people in the rest of society, they get an education so that they can make more money. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I have a good job, makes I get decent, I get great pay. Um, but I think that we as Native people do this because we want to take care of our families. We want to fulfill our cultural responsibilities. So I can do those kinds of things that they cost something to do those kinds of things. And I think that, persevering with your education for that goal of being able to take care of your family, take care of your cultural responsibilities, give back to your community. I think that's different for us as Native people than it is for others, who might be doing that just so that because they want to, again, nothing wrong with it, but they want to have a good job and that's their main focus.
Mhm.
Yeah. Those
Definitely.
those
I agree with
values
that.
are real important. Yeah, I think falling on your values is really, really cool. And recognizing that it takes work. You have to do your
Mhm.
homework. You have to show up in class. If you go to class and do your homework, if you get tutoring if you need it. I like really struggled. It's so ironic because I really struggled with algebra, but I got A's in statistics and economics.
Really?
Right. Yeah. So So I think, I think sometimes you need a tutor, and it takes courage which is one of our values, right? It takes courage to go and ask somebody to help you. Takes bravery to go up to the teacher and say, I'm struggling, or I didn't understand. Can you give me some advice about how I could learn this? Because we don't always get that exposure in, in high school, or if we get an HSC, high school equivalency. Yeah.
Definitely. That's really hard to kind of just put yourself out there and be like, I didn't understand anything you just said. Help.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Note
did that
taking.
plenty of times. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm a note taker, even today, even
Yeah,
now. I don't always go back to them, but it helps it stick in my brain.
definitely. Well, let's switch over to kind of like your work life career experiences. So what was your first job? Like out of college or out of high school? Like what would you say your first job was?
Well, in high school, so I did a lot of babysitting, in high school. That was more common, I think. Yeah, it was a small town, so um, yeah, I did that. I worked for the after high school, when I went to college, when I came back from college, I worked for the former tribal president in the tribe's economic development office. And I also helped do the books at a gas station.
Hmm.
So I grew up in a family that my dad, my parents had a store in St. Francis. And when they sold their store, when I was like around 8 years old, my dad got a job with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And I think I grew up in a family with a real strong work ethic.
Hmm.
And so there was an expectation that you would work and whatever. And I always remember my mom saying that when her and my dad were first married, it was before World War II, and my dad went to college for a couple of years at the University of South Dakota. Really unusual, I think, for a Native person. But my mom said that my dad swept the and cleaned the Episcopal Church in Vermilion. And then because he needed to make money to support him and her.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, your dad dug ditches." And my dad was like really super, like, you would never have thought of him as doing stuff like that. But she always said that, he knew that he needed to work to take care of his family. And I think they passed that work ethic on to us. So I always worked in between going to college, and then by the summer that I got out, got that job at Cinte and stayed there for years.
That's really cool. Um, well, I guess do you have a favorite job that you've had so far, or is this your current favorite job? A.
I liked all my jobs. I've been really thankful to the creator that I've been able to have jobs where I've been able to thrive. It's not, and I don't want to paint it like it's all rosy.
Yeah.
It's really hard it's hard to be in a leadership role. I think that like at Cinte, I had all those different experiences that prepared me for leadership, and I was a real active in my community, active around environmental issues and community sobriety issues and things like that. And then I really liked working at St. Francis Indian School. That's my community. Many of the students are my relatives. It was really rewarding. It wasn't the area that I was educated in. I was not
Mhm.
educated to be in a K-12 system, but I would say that a couple of things that, besides just that being my home community, I learned a lot about student learning and assessing learning and how to motivate a larger group, because there was like maybe 150, 160 employees there. So I learned what it meant to do that. And I also learned how to work with a board.
Mm,
Those are good skills to have. So then when I went to Northwest Indian College to be their president, I already had some skills around managing large groups of people, around planning, around student learning, around working with a board, because those are different skills than you would have in another position. Like I have to work with our board all the
mm.
time, and that's a different skill set. So I think that, you know, St. Francis really, I really loved that job, and it helped me with skills that I needed later. I need now.
Yeah. So really, education never ends.
It doesn't. You know, I'm thinking like right now, for example, the College Fund has an opportunity to look at what digital literacy means. And,
Mm,
you know, I had no idea what digital literacy really means. I shouldn't say no idea, but I didn't really I really understand it. So I have been educating myself, reading about it, um, talking to other people, like brainstorming, putting uh, just some effort into understanding what that means. And so I do think it is ongoing. You know, so you pick an area, if you're in a leadership role like mine, you have to be broadly knowledgeable,
mhm,
which is different than if you're the finance person, where your skill set is finance and your knowledge of other aspects of the organization are not as deep as if you're, you know, in the when you're the CEO or the president, you have to pretty much have broad knowledge of everything. So you have to learn. You have to be willing to learn.
that's very true. Definitely have to be like a sponge. Just get all the information you can.
Right. And you also have to just balance that, though I will say, Laura, that you have to say, okay, I can't know everything. That's
True.
really hard as a person, you know, as a person when I was younger, I just thought, oh, I should know everything that's going on. And it took me a lot of work to realize that there was no way that I could know everything that was going on. And I had to build my trust.
Mm,
I had to, my trust that other people knew what was going on and would thrive in their work.
yeah. Have you noticed any significant differences in the workforce from when you started or versus now, I guess?
Yeah, I do think that's a good question. Um, you know, if you work on the reservation, it's different than if you work off the reservation. Um, so working in Rosebud and then working up at Lummi, you know, I worked primarily in a place-based environment. And I think as a Native person, um, the the way the community interacts when you're in leadership is very respectful, and people are really, um, you know, if it's a healthy environment, people turn to you for advice and support. I think it's different working off the reservation. Um, I think when I first came to the College Fund, I was a little taken aback that so many people had opinions that they thought I should listen to.
Mm,
And I think that that's a generational change. So we often talk at the College Fund about how do we hear younger people, the younger workforce. So I think that's a factor. I don't know that you see that as much in reservation communities because our young people are raised to be um, better listeners
mhm.
of, you know, what older people have to say or what more experienced people have to say. So this is a good example though. At my age, I'm still adapting.
Mm,
I'm still learning what how to work with different generations who have been exposed to the world differently than me. When I
That's
was growing up,
interesting.
there was no social media when I was growing up. That,
Cool.
you know, there was not like entitlement to my opinion. I wasn't entitled to give my opinion to my elders. If they asked me, I could, but I didn't feel like I
Yeah.
was entitled to. And
Yeah.
I don't mean entitlement, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think that
Mhm.
that's a generational change. So younger generations are more exposed to the world, they're more exposed to social influences. Um, they have different family structures. They have different expectations of how they'll contribute. And so, yeah, so I'm still learning and finding things out. And I also realize that students have a different experience with each group of students, each generation. So I have a large family. I have
Mhm.
grandkids that are in their 20s and grandkids that are 3, that are babies. And So I think that I've been really trying to be a good steward of the growth and the development of younger generations. And I can only do that if I learn from them. And so, even like being able to hear like your experience or the experiences of college students, native college students today, um, has been really kind of like one of the things that I try to pay attention to. Um, and also, though, I am going to be 70. So I do have an expectation of my voice being treated with respect and my experience, my 40 some years of experience being of value. So I think that's a balance, right? Of listening, but also having an expectation of being able to be respected for my experiences and what I can share.
Exactly, which is why I asked you to do the series because I know you're
Yeah.
knowledgeable. You have, a different life from, my elders that I know personally. So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that me and the other scholars and future scholars who watch this video get to hear that from you. So, yes, you're
Uh,
definitely respected.
yeah, and I'm traumatized by being an elder.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how did that happen? But I'm really thankful that I'm trying to grow into that, right? I'm trying to like grow into being that
Yeah.
um that elder. Yeah, yeah. Especially since I do have older siblings who, they still think I'm 16. So
Yeah.
yeah, which is
I like
nice.
that. Um, did you face any challenges while you were finding your career path?
I think I did. I wanted to go into economic development. I was really interested in helping my tribe, um, because I think the economic issues that our people face are so debilitating.
Mhm.
Not having business development. And I think now that I'm older, I always say, I'm proof that somebody can run a $50 million organization. I'm proof that a native person can run a $50 million organization. And
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, and I think we as native people broadly, we don't necessarily know how to navigate that economic environment. But I think we have a lot of native people who are evidence that we can run these, companies, and or that we could have our own businesses. And so that was actually what I really wanted to do. When I was much younger, I wanted to be a lawyer, but
Mhm.
which was why I went into political science. But I really wanted to contribute economically, but that opportunity didn't present itself. So I think that being able to, you know, recognize that the path that I got put on in education was the right one, and that my interest in economics and political science and my degree in business helped me in that path. So maybe I can run large organization and understand financial statements because I have that business degree,
Yeah.
which was a long time ago. Business has changed, but
Yeah.
yeah, but it was helpful then. Yeah, so that's I don't think it's a regret, but I wish I could do more in that area.
Mm. Well, there's still time.
Yeah, we'll see.
Mm.
When I don't I still think I have a lot to contribute, of course, but I also think, you know, the responsibilities of managing a large organization, you need to share those, as a leader. And I
Definitely.
think cultivating and supporting other people as they grow in their work is real important also.
Do you, I guess you touched on it a little bit, but like, did you do anything specific to overcome these challenges? Or like, if feeling anxious about something or, a big
Mm-hmm.
opportunity was coming your way, like, how did you navigate those feelings? Or like, how did you kind of get, um, get past those challenges?
Yeah, I'm a very I have worked over time to make sure that I pay attention to my spirituality. And I think that working at Sunday Glasgow really helped me, yeah, kind of get grounded in that. I've also done a lot of wellness work because, I was raised in a family where alcohol impacted our family. And my parents had both gone to boarding schools. My older sisters, had children early in their lives. So all those kinds of social things that happen, I went to high school. A lot of people I went to high school with dropped out.
Mm,
Um, so I think I've really spent a lot of my time working with my wellness. My I had a lot of things that I had to deal with after my first marriage, and it took me. I'm married again, and it took me time to feel safe in that kind of environment. And so
mm,
I encourage people, work on your wellness. It's a it's it's ongoing, you know. Be I the create I am a like I pray before every time I'm going to speak. You wouldn't know it because I'm talking so much, but
yeah.
I'm actually an introvert. um I can be in silence for extended period of time and I'm fine. And
Yeah,
I do a lot of sewing and beading and reading and stuff like that. And that's knowing that about myself has helped me, um, kind of be in balance. But I think being in balance and taking care of yourself is it. You don't just arrive there. You have to
definitely.
do it all the time. Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to do it every day.
Another ongoing event that you just have to keep
It
working at.
is. You do. I think so. And you kind of go up and down. There've been periods when I didn't feel very sacred, where I've just kind of had to make myself be in that practice. And then there's other
Hmm.
times where I just feel, in the spirit. And so I think that's part of maybe experience in aging is I accept that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, similar to any advice for education, do you have any advice for people starting their careers or if they're thinking about switching careers or anything like that? Or if they don't know what
Yeah,
they want to do?
yeah. I mean, I think that that's really common. You don't know what you want to do, and I think there's a lot of pressure. Uh, I think one of the things for us as Native people is, we haven't had exposure to all of the different kinds of opportunities that there are. Um, I never would have thought that I would run a nonprofit. That never
Mhm.
even, wasn't even close to my radar when I was younger. So if you don't, so my advice, if you don't know what you want to do, is that's okay. it's okay to explore and learn about different opportunities. And nowadays, you have an advantage that I did not have. You have YouTube and videos, and you have the ability to meet other people that didn't really exist when I was younger, and I think that that's really an advantage. So I think it's okay, and I think it's also I think when you start your career, it's really the one piece of advice that I would have given myself that I know now is that it's okay to let it unfold. That you can be aspirational, but you don't have to push yourself to it. It's okay. Like I think about one of my friends that I worked with years ago when she was the administrative assistant in my office when I was the dean, and she said to me one day that she had picked to be this executive assistant and I should quit trying to do her job for her. And it was like a really good piece of advice because I thought, oh, I should let that person do their job.
Mm,
And I think that that's a good piece of career advice. Somebody has a job, let them do their job so you can do yours. So that's something I wish that I kind of understood a little bit better when I was younger. I also think it's okay to change careers. I think although I've stayed in education, I've changed careers.
mhm,
So I think that that's okay to do that. There's a learning curve associated with
mhm,
it, but I was really shocked when I came to the college fund, the difference between running a nonprofit and running a college. And so
mm,
I think that that's part of the advice I would give people if you're changing careers is to recognize there's going to be some similarity, but there's probably going to be a lot of differences.
definitely. Well, thank you for your educational and career advices.
Oh, thank you
Um,
for inviting me.
yeah. Would you like to talk a little bit about our voting initiative that we're doing at the College Fund?
Yeah, so thanks for asking me to speak about that. The I think the it's a, I tell people it's important to vote even if you're uncomfortable with the US government or you're uncomfortable with the state government, or you think your tribe should straighten up. Sometimes those kinds of things can make you feel like voting doesn't matter, but people who are elected in positions at the tribe, at the county, at the state, at the federal level, they are taking our money as taxpayers and allocating that money to what they interpret as the priorities. And I always tell my relatives, our people need um, energy assistance. Our people need home repair. Our people need food stamps. We have a lot of our relatives who get Pell Grants to go to college. All of those things come from decisions by people who are elected to office. And so when I think about voting, I think I'm declaring what I value. I'm declaring what I want for my people. And I want my people to have healthy, happy, economically stable lives. And they're not going to get that in ways that we want them to have if we don't influence how money is spent. And you influence how money is spent by voting. Uh, the same with treaties. We as Native people really honor our treaty rights. People who are elected, they influence how treaties are fulfilled. So I just encourage everybody to vote, um, and make their voice heard in support of our education, our health, and for our people. So you can go to the college funds, collegefund.org website, and you can scroll down the page to the vote section, and you can If your registration deadlines haven't passed, you can still register to vote. You can learn how to, um, influence ballot measures, and you can also submit a video or share your inspiration about voting. So that's the reason that we do it. Um, Especially for me, from the college funds perspective, I want all of our
Mhm.
students to have sufficient financial aid. And the Pell Grant is applied for and received by probably close to 90% of tribal college students. And who sets the Pell Grant? The federal government. Congress sets it. And so that whoever you put in there, they're going to make decisions about the amount of the Pell Grant. That's why I think we should vote.
Mhm. I agree with that very much. I'm going to put the College Fund website in the chat and then just scroll down a little ways and you'll see it. Um, it's Make Native Voices Heard Vote. So if you guys want to check that out, I put it in the chat, the link. So check that out when you get a minute. And then did any of our scholars have any questions for Cheryl before we close out? You can either type it in the chat or if you want to come off of mute, then you can as well.
Oh, cool. The note taker said it's quiet. I'm like, oh, I'm still adjusting to note takers. So I'm really glad I got to join you. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for being my first person for the Elder series, my first Elder.
Good. Thank you.